everyone, my name is Zach REDRUP and this is the It's Not a Phase podcast. On this episode, I'm joined by Patient 67 frontman Tom Kiely to talk all about their debut album, Wishful Thinking. We also talk about how the band got together, the reality and challenges of being an independent DIY band, working with the likes of Kellin Quinn from Sleeping with Sirens, creating memes and a bunch more. Before we get started, let's cover off the boring stuff. If you enjoy this episode and would like to support the podcast, please consider subscribing, rating, and leaving a review wherever you're listening to this. We also have a Patreon, where everyone gets access to each episode a week earlier than everyone else, and a merch store too. You can also follow and reach out to me on social media. All of the links can be found at itsnotaphase.co.uk. That's itsnotaphase.co.uk. And with all of that out of the way, let's jump right into this week's episode of It's Not a Phase. What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining me on this episode of It's Not a Phase, where I'm joined by Tom Kiely of Patient 67. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Zach. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, sure. I'm, up bright and early, seeing as though you're on the other side of the world. So, thanks for taking the time. So obviously there'll be a few listeners who, tune into this and they're not quite aware of who Patient 67 are. So am I right in thinking you took your name from the film Shutter Island? Is that right?
Yeah, you're exactly right, Zach. Yeah, we spoke a lot, early on when the band was coming together and just kicking names around. And that was a movie that I still love it to this day. But yeah. At the time I was thinking, what are some cool things in movies that and that Patient 67 just stuck out and it landed. And I'm luckily I'm not sick of the name at this point. So that's a good sign. Yeah.
How often do you kind of get asked where does the name come from? Where does the name come from?
I mean, it's more than a few times. Yeah, a couple of times.
Yeah. With Leonardo DiCaprio films, I always liked, The Great Gatsby and Wolf on Wall Street. Inception was always a good one.
Oh, that movie is so sick. Yeah, I'm a big fan of movies that get you thinking and psychological thrillers and that sort of thing. Yeah. And when I saw Shutter Island for the first time, it just blew my mind. So it's always stuck with me.
Yeah, but he's had ones early in his career as well. Was it The Beach? That's quite I don't know if you've seen that, but that's quite it's not a easily digestible film. You've got to kind of think about what's going on.
You got to kind of be present through the whole movie. You can't just kind of switch off. I can appreciate those sort of watches.
So in the grand scheme of things, you guys are a fairly new band. To give newcomers kind of a chance to get acquainted with the band, can you kind of explain when and how you guys got together?
Yeah, for sure. The thing is with our band, Zach, we have been around a little while. I think it's really in the last couple of years we've sort of hit our stride, so to speak. We were playing local shows for a couple of years, just kind of doing different things, trying to kind of make a name for ourselves in our local scene. And it was pretty good. We played some fun shows and stuff, but it was really probably only in, I think, 2018 when we released our cover of Dua Lipa's song, I Don't Give a Fuck. That was when I think things started snowballing for us. And we've been really lucky over the last couple of years to just meet people such as yourself from around the world who kind of, enjoy our style of music, who enjoy sort of metalcore with a bit more of that flair and that kind of, a bit more polished as well. We kind of like to say we're fairly polished metalcore. And I just think, we have a sense of community about our band. We love talking to people. We love connecting with people. And yeah, we haven't really done too much on the local circuit in a while. But we've been really focused on just kind of, putting our music out there, on digital platforms and trying to meet and connect with new people that way. The pandemic was obviously really hard for a lot of bands. And, we tried to use it as a chance to sort of make the best out of that situation by using, the internet, as a lot of bands did, to really try and connect with people. So that's how it's kind of worked. Yeah, it's been good.
So you kind of touched on, you kind of got some kind of momentum after you did your Dua Lipa cover. And you've done a few other covers as well. You covered Post Malone and Silverstein, for example. Have there been any kind of covers you've attempted but didn't quite work, or songs you want to cover but haven't had a chance to try out yet?
I think there's definitely a mix, Zach, for sure. We like to, there's probably been ideas that I've had on paper, that we've maybe thought we've kicked around, but I don't know if that'd be the right fit. There's probably been lots of songs that are on the charts at the moment that I'd like to have a go at. But the problem is I don't really keep up as much with the top 40 as I should. So I generally have to go and scan for songs that I like if I'm going to do it. But that's the cool thing about TikTok, for example, you can do, and I know people, TikTok, oh God. But the cool thing is you can kind of use it. You can kind of use it to try out fun ideas as well. That's been cool to be why don't we try a cover of this? Or why don't we just mess around and do, try different things. So I would like to do a cover of an older metal jam, to kind of put a polished kind of spin on it. But I don't quite have the the stones to try that as of yet. Fear of backlash, but there's so many different ways you can go with covers. That's what I love about doing them.
It kind of obviously gives the vibes of the whole Punk Goes albums that came out and stuff. Especially like the Punk Goes Kunks albums as well. Like, what's that one that Devil Wears Prada did? Is it?
Still Fly. Yeah. That's so good.
Yeah.
Love it.
With your work lyrically, you tend to, stick to topics of kind of like personal hardships and struggles, mental health, that kind of thing. When you're writing these lyrics and putting them out there into songs for fans, but, essentially strangers to hear, is there any kind of like apprehension about how sincere you're being about these kind of topics? Because, you're kind of like wearing your heart on your sleeve, you're being vulnerable.
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah, definitely. There's a little bit of like, how far do you kind of want to go? How detailed do you want to be? How, much do you kind of want to open yourself up? Because I don't think you always have to be the hero in your own songs. Like, I feel like, musicians, we tend to, a lot of musicians will write from the heart, and I love that. But I've always been okay with kind of being imperfect, like with the way I write lyrics. Like, I'm happy to portray myself as like, like if I'm feeling like, mentally unwell or feeling sad or going through stuff like struggles with, addiction and stuff like that. Like, I'm going to bear that, and I'm okay with that being kind of uncomfortable. And I think you kind of have to get comfortable being uncomfortable if you're going to write. Like, I haven't really written too many songs that are based on concepts, but I've written a lot of songs that are based on like feelings that like I've gone through. And like, I know people can relate to those lyrics, and that's part of why music is so powerful, because you can, we all connect with bands that we love a lot of the time because of the lyrics, and the songs obviously built off that. So yeah, there's definitely a bit of apprehension, but you kind of push past that. I think during the recording process, you have to kind of remember, you're trying to tell a story, you're trying to portray, you're trying to give people an insight into that so they can connect with it. And I think it's all worth it in the end.
Yeah, I think obviously with this kind of scene, like the metalcore, post-hardcore scene, whatever you want to call it, there's so many bands like before you guys that'll come after you guys and stuff, and it's a big part of the genre and stuff is about talking about these personal struggles that you won't generally hear on the top 40 perhaps, and it helps people through their hardships. Like, if I listen to Linkin Park and all the stuff that Chester sang about and stuff, that's a big one.
Definitely.
And I think something that kind of helps you guys kind of stand apart, obviously you talk about all these like serious things in your songs, but online, with TikTok and Twitter and stuff, like you're not afraid to kind of joke around,
Yeah.
You're very partial to the memes and stuff as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you think in this kind of day and age with bands, how vital is it to be so socially present and kind of sink into the meme culture as well, I guess?
I think it's really, I think you have to kind of be true to yourself. Like, that's one thing I say to other bands or other artists who talk to me, about, like, I like the way you do your socials. And I'm like, it's not a tactic. It's not a intentional kind of thing. It's just like, I've been around this scene for a while. Like, you've been around this scene for a while. You just kind of lean into like, you like, it's cool. I love laughing. I think the internet can be a great place to, there's a lot of like, disagreements and things, but the internet can be a fun place too. Like, it can be a positive place. So that's kind of who we are as people. Like, as a band, we're always joking around. We're always sharing memes. Like, we want that to be an extension of our band and ourselves. And that's why on Twitter, like, I'm happy to talk. Like, I love having serious conversations, but I also think it's good to spread positivity and like, have a laugh as well. And I think that's where it kind of all comes in. And it just feels important to kind of be true to yourself. And I love to joke around, and I try to I don't like to post anything controversial. Like, that's not really my style or anything in the band. We're not going to post things for controversy. Like, it's just not the way some bands love doing that, right? They love, having a discussion. We're happy to just they love it. And that's great. Yeah. And some bands are happy, like their personalities might be more on the serious side, but we're very just like kind of, I don't know, we're just happy to kind of put that energy out there because it's kind of who we are. So yeah.
I think you can kind of like use it to poke fun at the scene we're a part of, because, metal's kind of seen, I guess stereotypically as kind of like a serious, like the fans are serious, you've got the elitist metalheads and stuff like that. So like, for example, if we do something kind of like relevant to now, if you say, oh, who the hell Metallica? Who is this band on Stranger Things? Right. And the metalhead's like, how do you not know who Metallica are? You never heard Ride the Lightning?
I mean, I assume when you post something like that, people know that it's like, that's not to say not posting anything controversial. I would hope most people would know that it's purely it's for a laugh. And like, I think you don't want to like cross any lines, like, but I just felt like stuff like that is just, it's all in good fun. And you got to be able to laugh at yourself too. Like, I love like being able to look back on the music I loved and still love today, like, you know, metalcore bands of old or like the Warped Tour scene, all that stuff, and being able to like, yeah, you got to be able to have a laugh with that stuff too. You know, people are so serious all the time. But I think bands tend to be quite like, again, it's just about doing what feels natural to you. And as soon as I was tweeting and like posting memes, I was like, the band, like I run all our socials. Why wouldn't I just bring that same energy to that? Because that's kind of who we are as a band anyways, like just having a good time and just wanting to have a laugh and connect with people. So yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. I think like, you know, it's strange, isn't it? Because you had like bands like, when they first came out, like Attack and Bring the Horizon, and there was all this kind of like hate going towards them because they're like posers and the whole crabcore thing and stuff. But it's crazy, isn't it, when people look back at those albums and now like the debut Attack album is kind of like revered as like this iconic piece, and like Count Your Blessings by Bring Me is like their best album ever, whereas when they first came out, they were getting bottled every night. It's crazy.
It is. That's a really good point. Like, I think, you know, we've kind of evolved where we can kind of see, you know, things that happened 10 years ago, 15 years ago, kind of through like a nostalgic lens. And I think people, you know, people of similar ages can kind of, who remember that time or like are interested in that time, you can kind of look at it through a different lens now. And yeah, it's definitely crazy to see how it's changed over the years.
Yeah. I think I read somewhere that before Patient 67, like you guys didn't really have like, I guess like a full dive into like how the music industry works. And it's kind of like your first kind of serious band. At what point did it kind of feel like Patient 67 was becoming something more of a focus for you guys? Was it kind of the Dua Lipa cover like you mentioned earlier, would you say?
I think probably around that time, like probably when we did the Four Walls EP, 2018, like, yeah, this band is my first band. Every mistake in the book, I've made it, you know, learn how to release music that's terrible, you know, play shows unprepared, done it all. Like that's part of the journey. And I've loved learning about all that stuff in this band. But I think as we started to, again, find our identity and, you know, once we found that, you know, once we did the Four Walls EP and then the cover and we start building that momentum, it became something that sort of started to take up more and more of my time. And here we are where it feels like it's like a second full-time job for me. And, you know, I'm grateful for that because I feel like there's a lot of times I wanted to quit and not like pursue music because it's hard. Like it's really hard to go put yourself out there every day, but it's all worth it in the end because it's something that it's got a real hold on me. I can't stop doing it. I love doing it. So but it's definitely not one of those situations. And I think we'll see more of this going forward, Zach, especially after COVID and stuff. You know, musicians not really sure where to go. Like the passion reignites to start a project and you get these super groups that come together and straight off the bat, they're polished, they're label ready. Sometimes they're already signed. I mean, we've seen that before and we'll see it again, I'm sure. But that very much is not our band. We've had to really cut our teeth. And that makes it all the more rewarding in the end for me. Yeah.
I guess especially if you look back at, I guess, like your first few releases and stuff, and then you compare it to, you know, the stuff on the new album, which we'll talk about soon. Yeah. I guess like night and day for you, because obviously you've experienced like writing it and recording it and putting it all together and stuff.
It's like two completely different bands, but Page 67 is we've kept the name. It's a project for me and for Declan as well, who's been there since day one. And that's what I love. You know, music is about growth too. And I think we can all relate to that, whether we're listening to it, playing, going to shows, whatever. It's about, it's a journey.
Well, you mentioned as well the, you know, you kind of like learn everything as you've gone on, you know, the mistakes that any kind of musician would make, you've made them and stuff like that. For any like newer bands that might be listening to this and kind of want to follow us like a similar path that you guys have, what have kind of been like the biggest lessons you've learned so far?
That's another good question, mate. I think probably my biggest thing when bands ask me, and if they ever do, I'm very, very grateful for that. But I think I've just say to them, don't spend time trying to impress other bands. Don't curate your band based trying to fit in or trying to meet other musicians' expectations of you. It's hard to operate that way. I think, you know, early on for us, we were worried too much about where we kind of sat in the local pecking order. That stuff doesn't matter. It just doesn't. You have to do something that stays true to who you are. You write the music you want to write. And I just think be consistent with it. Don't give up. Like songs are going to flop. Songs flop all the time. Yeah. But as we've seen with like, you know, these mediums, you can still, you don't have to be an overnight success. You're never an overnight success. Like it's always the work that you put in prior. So just stay consistent and don't quit. If you truly love doing it, don't quit when things don't go your way, because things a lot of the time are not going to go your way. So I think that's recognizing that. Yeah. I
think a big example of that, you know, a lot of people would know is like Ice Nine Kills. They've been going for nearly 20 years before they broke out. Like they started as a ska band. So
that's a great example. Yeah. They've definitely, they've learned how to succeed over time consistently. And there's a few other bands like that who have really been around for a long. I mean, even Architects. I know they've been big for a long time, but like it's not like they just appeared 2 years ago. They've been grinding for a long time.
Yeah.
Amity Affliction, another one from Australia. They've been around since like 2005, I want to say. Yeah, so there are those bands who just keep building and building, and then you can sustain off that.
You know, you said Architects, they're a good example. I don't know if you've seen it, but just before they put out Lost Forever, which obviously is what saw them take off.
Yeah.
They did a documentary called 100 Days, where basically it was their tour through Asia, I think it's like Indonesia and stuff like that. And they were playing to literally like maybe 20, 30 people. And I think there's even one show where that they're playing Early Grave, and because there's no one really there, they're kind of like having fun with it. And Sam Carter's screaming the words whilst playing the drums at the same time.
Holy shit.
It's just crazy. Like they're that small, and then the next album, it's just like boom. So consistency, I think, not just in like bands and stuff, any creative outlet is just, you know, key.
Yeah, great.
So moving on to Patient 67 in 2022, as we say, you've got your debut full-length album, Wishful Thinking. When did you begin working on that? And I don't know if COVID kind of had an impact on it actually coming together, or like delayed the process.
I think we had to be really intentional with our time in putting the album together, Zach. I think, you know, COVID had its challenges like it has for really any industry, I want to say at this point. But really, we started writing it probably the beginning of last year, started recording it in March of 2021. And then we recorded it pretty much over the next 6 months. Every weekend, we'd be in the studio writing, recording. It was such a grind because we have work schedules, and like our guitarist works away sometimes. So it was like a labor of love. Every weekend, it was like chipping away at it. And because we'd never done that many songs before, it was really a new process for our band. So yeah, it really was just like a ticking the boxes, like, you know, this song, where do we think it needs to go, and kind of mapping it out in advance. So a lot of preparation, a lot of me coming to a lot of late nights, me working on lyrics to take to the studio. And then we started releasing the singles as we were finishing the album. So it was kind of like, okay, we've got these songs. Let's get the ball rolling on this now. There is no point in us waiting. Like, let's grease the wheels. So that's what we did.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of like the advantage of being an independent band. You don't have to kind of like put it forward to the label. They have to like sign off on it, and then they say, this is kind of your rollout, here's your release date, and stuff like that.
Yeah 100%.
In contrast to that, being an independent band, I don't know if kind of like the rest of the industry, you're kind of, because you've got vinyl of the album as well, has there been like kind of delays with that?
That was part of why we went with a company who kind of manages it all themselves in house, so we could kind of avoid that. But I've seen what you're referring to, and it's astronomical. The delays. Yeah. So we've worked with a company who they're quite small. They work with bands of our size, you know, more upcoming bands and that sort of thing. And they're able to sort of handle all of the stuff from their side. But yeah, it's, for the most part, I think it's been really tough with vinyl, like 12-month delays type thing sometimes.
Yeah, I'm waiting on one that I ordered like this time last year. It's turned up, so it's crazy.
Oh yeah.
Was it a case of you guys wanted to definitely? It was definitely like an album you guys were writing. It wasn't like you started doing some singles and it's kind of forming into an album.
I think when we started doing the first song we wrote for it, like as a band, tracked it and stuff, was Scattered. I think as we were kind of doing that and the songs kind of stacked, we didn't plan to go in and do an album, but I think probably 3 songs in, we were like, damn, we could do it. We could turn this into like a 10-track album. And I think once we locked that in, it became kind of clear we could experiment a little bit, do different things. And I mean, it was always a kind of bit of a moonshot goal of mine to want to to put an album out with this band. You know, we've done EPs, we've done singles, and this kind of feels like a real important occasion to have a go-to record for people to go and discover our band. You know, it feels important. So I'm glad we were able to bring it together. You know, people in our scene love albums. They still underpin, you know, a lot of discussions and a lot of, you know, the way we view music in metal and metalcore and stuff is still very much through the lens of albums a lot of the time. Yeah. And, you know, that's obviously the way that people are releasing music is obviously changing with streaming platforms and whatnot. But I still think that there's room for those super fans who love a band and want to really dive in to have that album. Yeah.
And like you say, there's the way music consumed has changed. But I think with an album, it kind of sets like a statement, and you kind of, you know, you've got to think about the whole flow and the track listing and stuff like that.
Definitely.
So on the album, you've got a few features as well. You've got obviously Kellin Quinn, you've got Joey from Varsity, you've got Brian from Currents, and Julian from Loveless. What was it like working with them, and how did you kind of go about bringing them onto this record?
Yeah, I think, you know, we just wanted to kind of give we wanted the opportunity to collaborate with a few different artists. You know, obviously it's been kind of like the new version of touring, like, you know, without it for a while, and, you know, not having shows and stuff. I think it was just the songs felt like they could benefit from having an extra voice on them. You know, like we didn't want the record to feel stale at any point. They all came about differently. Like Kellin, we've known for a while. Like we've written songs with him in the past. Even as early as 2019, we wrote Where To From Here with him. He's been amazing for our band. So he kind of made sense on Feel Alive. Brian, we just kind of reached out to through Featured X. Like that was just more of like a straight feature, but like he loved the song and wanted to do it. And he was amazing in doing his part. Joey, like his band, I've known Varsity for a long time, like going on like 8 years or so. I've followed their band. They're amazing. And he's such a talented vocalist. And that was just like, you know, texting on Facebook and stuff. And then Julian, we wrote that song with, you know, he pretty much wrote the majority of that song that we're releasing with him. Like he brought his songwriting experience to the table there. And then it was like, you'd sound really good on this song. And that just kind of worked out. So every collaboration was different. But I'm glad we were able to get a mix of different voices on the album. You know, I love features when I'm listening to records. So I wanted to bring that same energy for our album.
Yeah, I think I saw you mention on Twitter. So didn't Kellin say he wants you to come on stage at one point or something to sing?
He did say about crosses, and like Kellin's a very friendly man. So I hope we'll see. I mean, that would be dream come true, but he's very, very good with his time and helping artists, sort of paving the way for artists to sort of pay it forward almost from his perspective. And you know, but if that would ever happen, that'd be crazy. I just can't wait to see them live again. I can't wait to go to a festival again, actually. So I'm just looking forward to that.
Yeah. So what kind of like achievements and opportunities are you kind of realistically looking for that comes off the back of this record?
It's a very good question. Once again, I think my pipe dream, and I've written it on my album planning session that I look at a lot and don't do stuff with because I just don't even know where to start. Downside of DIY, you literally do it yourself. It's not just a fun it's just not a fun abbreviation acronym. You actually do have to do stuff.
It is what it says on the tin.
100%. It's make no mistake. It's not just put it on Spotify and then it probably will do well. No, it's a lot of work. I think my goal for the album is truly to chart in some way, shape or form, even as simple as like hitting the iTunes charts. Like that truly is like, that would be just such a incredible accomplishment for a band, you know, from Perth, doing everything in house, you know. That would be truly special. And I think just the opportunity to maybe play more shows and to push our music to more people. We want our music to reach as many people as possible, Zach. We want the songs to grow. I'm actually quite looking forward to not having the album pending so I can do more like content around the album without like when it's already out and kind of draw people to the album, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I think that'll be cool. And just the goal is really just to have people hopefully enjoy it and like it. But if we were to land on any sort of chart, I just wouldn't know what to do with myself. So.
Yeah. I guess once it's out, there's kind of like a weight's been lifted off you because you're kind of, I can imagine you kind of like sitting there like, what are people going to like on this album? What are they not going to like? What are they going to say about it? Which, like, you don't know, like one of the deep cuts on the album might take off better than you expected, like maybe better than the singles you've dropped. And then like you say, you can, instead of like being anticipating this release, you're kind of then thinking like, right, well, this has happened. Like a fan said this, and maybe we can like kind of make this content off the back of it and stuff like that.
Definitely. Definitely. And that's what I'm looking forward to doing, is being able to kind of unpack the album when it's out and have a chance to, however long we'll be pushing it as long as we can, just have the chance to do that. And then obviously we get to go on the road in August, which is just like giving me mass anxiety just because we've never toured before. So I'm just trying to unpack what that looks like. It's going to be amazing. I just have the chance for people to play some of the songs live too. So trying to keep the goals relatively simple, but also it's about the long game too. As we discussed, you can build off, you know, you can use it as a springboard.
Yeah, absolutely. So what else is kind of, you know, you mentioned obviously the album release, the tour as well. What else is planned so far for Patient 67 for the rest of 2022?
I think we'll be doing more. We're content heavy as a band. Like we're always looking to put stuff out for people to consume. And, you know, people have their opinions about how, like, the balance of content in 2022. I get it. Like, I understand it, but I also, like, I'm not going to sit around and do nothing about it. Like, it's something that, you know what I mean? Like, I acknowledge it and I agree with all of that stuff, but yeah, no, we're definitely going to be doing a lot more. You know, you'll be seeing more covers from us, more fun videos. We've got another music video planned for post tour for one of the songs off the album. And then we'll be back in the studio by the end of the year. I can promise you that we'll be writing more, and that's just what we do. Just trying to see where we kind of take it forward from there. So we'll have those there's already demos sitting in our inbox that we need to flesh out. So that process is already beginning. So that's exciting.
Yeah, I think that's important. It's like, kind of mentioned it earlier, the way people consume music and people's attention spans in 2022 is like shorter than ever. I'm sure like things like TikTok don't really help with that, because you do like, it's just such short videos, but at the same time, TikTok's such a great marketing tool as well. Not that it's good at marketing, but it pushes your name and stuff out there. Yeah.
No, you're right. You're exactly right. It is a marketing tool. It's, it's hard. And that's the thing, like people get burnt out doing it. And that's really important to acknowledge. Like you have to, like I feel like my mental health is like, it's teetering, because I'm trying to like make sure that I give room, like take time for myself, but make sure I maximize the time I do have on the album. It's like that impossible balance. You're like, is it worth more of my time to go and spend it on TikTok, or do I send more like emails to magazines? Like there's so many things as an independent artist that you have to kind of work through. So I think, we'll definitely our content will always be as genuine as possible in that sense too. Like we want to make stuff that seems fun so we don't burn out, if that makes sense, Zach. Like we're not going to do stuff that's constantly exhausting, because I feel like then you get sick of it really quickly. Yeah. And that's what artists struggle with, I think, sometimes, is like, overkill.
Yeah. I think sometimes, fans don't quite 100% know as an independent artist what an independent artist does. Like, yes, you're a band member, but you're also kind of a social media manager, you're a press agent, you're a tour manager, and you've got to kind of balance all these acts as to what is most beneficial of my time to do right now.
I say to people a lot of the time that vocals are 10% of what I do in the band, and they always raise their eyebrows. And I say, that's the truth. Like, like vocals are like the end, like that's like the icing on the cake, right? It's everything else. Like you said, and it's the same with any brand like that you run yourself. Like you do marketing, you obviously do the content creation, whatever field that you're in, like you're doing that. And then it's all the stuff around it. It's a lot. So you have to kind of navigate it in a way that it's sustainable. And I feel like because the album is such a big thing, I'm looking forward to it being out so I can kind of focus on different elements of it rather than everything at once.
Yeah. What's kind of are you hoping to stay as an independent band for as long as possible? Or do you kind of have like a label you want to sign with or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, if Sharp Tone or Fearless wanted to give us a call, that'd be really cool. But like, also got to be realistic as well. Like, I'm happy to be independent. We do get offers from time to time, but it's up to the bands. Like for some bands, being signed to a label is a really great fit, and it would depend on the deal, depends on the band. We'll see what the future brings. Nothing's confirmed. But if a label can see that we're able to push a release out by ourselves, they might be thinking, geez, imagine what we could do if they had an actual team behind them and not just like two dudes. So it's, you gotta be excited about that prospect.
100%. Well, before I let you go, have you got any final words, anything else you want to say or plug or anything like
that? Firstly, Zach, thank you again for having me, mate. I always make a point of celebrating like the work that people like yourself do and helping to get music out there for people. I think it's really important. I think our scene is built still. I don't know, there's viral marketing and stuff, but it's still all done at the grassroots level for me. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you. And just for anyone who gives this a listen and wants to check us out, the album's out July 22. If you like anything heavier with a bit of a, melodic twist to it as well, please give us a listen. Hopefully you like what you hear. Our Facebook page is fairly active, as are our socials. So go and spend some time on there and have a laugh with us. That's all from me.
Take care. Have a good day.
Peace, dude. Bye.
And that's it. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, please consider supporting the podcast in any way that you can. We have a Patreon where you can get access to each episode a week early, along with some other perks, a merch store, or you can leave a review wherever you're listening to this. You can also follow me on social media or subscribe to the newsletter, where I'll send out each episode to you via email, along with regular playlists. All this can be found at itsnotaphase.co.uk. That's itsnotaphase.co.uk. Thanks again for listening, and remember, it's not a phase, it's a lifestyle.